also going to be doing a few trigger sounds along the way. Bit of tapping, that sort of thing, you know. But without any further ado, let's just get straight into today's video. Okay. The first story is by Susie Strawberry 33. It's titled Robert Came Back to Try Again. For context, I'm female and was 25 at the time, living with my housemate Tony and his 13-year-old son Ben. I was working nights and would sleep during the day while Tony was at work and Ben at school. One day I woke up to my bedroom door slowly opening, stopping half open. I was half asleep still and it took me a minute to wake up, although strange, he opened my bedroom door. I assumed it was Tony, home from work early. I called out, Tony. And I heard a noise in the house. Still half asleep, I casually wandered out to look around, but no one was home. I was confused, but thought maybe I hadn't shut my door properly and it had somehow slowly come open. Or maybe I didn't shut it properly to begin with and it had dreamt it was opening. I went back to sleep and told Tony and Ben about it that afternoon. Ben then realised his PlayStation was gone. We looked around and found Ben's bedroom window screen had been forced open from the outside. I realised the way they opened my door, that they must have seen my feet on the bed and so stopped entering my room and left. I figured it must have been some teenage kid since they took the PlayStation and we filed a police report. But we weren't really that stressed about it. A few days later, it was my day off during the week and I went out shopping. When I got home, the place was a mess and had been properly robbed. I looked around and found our biggest kitchen knife on the floor by the door inside my bedroom. This time the guy had broken in through the kitchen window, grabbed the knife and checked my room, leaving the knife there once finding I wasn't home, before taking a bunch of stuff. Was he just going to stab me if he found me sleeping again? Why not just check the house and leave if he saw my feet again? Why even risk coming back to the same house? We didn't have particularly valuable stuff. He consciously decided he would confront me with the knife this time if I was home. I was pretty terrified, and we ordered security cameras, but nothing else ever happened. So stop you, Robert. Let's not meet. Damn, that is insane. Also, I don't know why the lighting keeps changing. It keeps going like kind of orange and then back to like the normalish. I don't know what that's about. I'm so sorry. I feel like whoever broke in is possibly worried. The top comment also says this, but I feel like they were probably worried that you saw them and that you could identify them, and so decided that killing you was the solution to that, which is crazy because it's a lot harder to get away with murder than it is to just hope that, you know, they didn't see you. That's crazy. Okay, the next one is by regular_mess 8914. also be using fake names for privacy. I was there with my friends Daniel and Lydia, who were both around 12 years old. I can't remember exactly which beach it was, but it was either Kooky Beach or another beach very close by. Lydia's mom drove us to the beach. She would usually just sit and down on the sand, and we would go off to do our own thing and have fun. We decided to play hide and seek around the beach, park, and surrounding walkways. Daniel was seeking and found me first, but neither of us could find Lydia. We searched everywhere: the beach, the nearby playground, and around the paths. Facing north, there were stairs leading up from the beach to a walking path that followed the coastline, overlooking the ocean and cliffs, as well as a small patch of bushland in the middle. We decided to head up the stairs and walked the entire path around the other side before climbing over a fence and into the bush to have a better look. About 5 minutes in, we came across what looked like a campsite. We saw a filthy tent, a sleeping bag hanging out of the zipper, a non-lit campfire, and empty bean cans scattered around the floor. We both immediately felt uneasy. Something about it didn't feel right. Without saying much, we decided to walk away from the tent, cut through the bush to get near the stairs we came from. Daniel was walking behind me as we made our way through the bush. Then suddenly, in the most stern voice I'd ever heard from him, he said, "Run." I didn't ask why. I didn't look back. Daniel was running behind me the whole time. Looking back now, I know he would have been much faster than me, but he stayed behind me the entire way. I sometimes wonder if he was doing that to make sure I didn't fall back behind. Whatever was happening, neither of us cared about anything except getting out of there. We reached the fence. It was probably about 4 feet high. For reference, I'm only 5'1" as an adult, so I would have been around the height of the fence or maybe shorter. We both leaped over with no issues. The second we landed on the other side, we looked back. Standing inside the bush was a homeless man, maybe in his late 40s, with a long grey-white beard, a dirty brown beanie, and worn, ragged clothes. In one hand, he was holding a knife. With his other hand, he kept motioning up for us to come back, quietly saying, "Come here, come here." We ran the entire way down the path until we found Lydia and her mum. From memory, we told them, but I don't think anything was done about the situation. I'm not sure if Lydia's mum told our parents or even reported it, if I'm being honest. I can't remember if I told my parents or if Daniel told his. It became one of those experiences we just never spoke about again. From how I saw the situation at that age, I kinda just shrugged it off. We all kept in touch for a few years after the incident, but eventually lost contact after I moved to a different state. Lately, I wonder about it more. What could have went differently? I still wonder what Daniel saw before he yelled for us to run. What I do know is that if Daniel hadn't been there that day, I probably wouldn't be here today telling this story. I count my lucky stars that Daniel was there with me. So to the man that was in the bush with a knife, let's never meet again. That's crazy. That's really crazy. It's good that Daniel was aware of their surroundings, otherwise God knows what could have happened. The next one is by the glowing Emily, and it's titled it's the summer, so it's not like I had to worry about school anyway. This one guy there started talking to me and showed me what all the alcohol was so I could get a drink. He said his name was Jason and he was 25, and when I told him that I was 16, he said I looked older than that. Then my fatal mistake. I had to go to the bathroom, so I asked this guy to hold my drink for me. When I got out, he gave me my drink back, and like an idiot, I finished it real quick. He made me another drink and then followed me around as I made my way through the party. I don't know if it was a few minutes or more like 10 to 15, but I started to feel really sick and dizzy very suddenly. Jason said I should go outside for some fresh air, so I followed him outside. It was honestly hard to think straight, but the rest is kind of a blur. I vaguely remember getting into a car and bits and pieces of the drive, but then I passed out. I woke up in a bed, in a room, all alone. I still felt pretty woozy, so I just kinda laid there wondering how I got home. Or if I was even at home at all. When I realized I was not in my own bed, I was wearing some kind of matching pajama set. The worst part about that is that I wasn't even wearing underwear, which I later learned meant that this creep took all my clothes off to dress me in this weird pajama outfit. Thankfully, in that moment, I didn't connect those dots, but it wouldn't matter for too long because eventually Jason came into the room to bring me breakfast. I can only imagine he thought he was being unbelievably generous to bring me coffee and 2 toasted waffles. I'm not gonna go over a detailed retelling of this entire week. Every day was pretty much the same. And quite honestly, I just don't want to. Basically, for an entire week, he made me act like a living doll in his house. He watched me eat, change my clothes to the outfits he picked out. Even using the bathroom, he always put drugs like ecstasy in my drinks to keep me in a positive attitude. It didn't really work though, except for a few hours a day when the drug took effect. And then, for seemingly no reason that I can conceive of, he brought me out to his car, put a cloth bag or something over my head, and drove me to some place to drop me off. When I got out of his car, he sped away and I never saw him again. Eventually, I was walking along the side of the road and just collapsed from fatigue. I didn't pass out, I just couldn't keep going. Apparently someone saw me fall down and called the police, who then found me and brought me to the hospital. Well, the ambulance brought me there and the police joined me to ask what the heck was going on. They knew I was missing and they pretty quickly figured out who I was, so they were able to call my parents. Next thing I know, my whole family is there to see me and praise the Lord that I was alive. I did my best to identify the guy that kidnapped me, and there was a pretty thorough investigation as far as I know, but they never found the guy. He was a total ghost. The police questioned nearly everyone who was at that party and learned the name of the guy who was probably the one to kidnap me, but it wasn't a real name. The phone number anyone had for him was disconnected and only attached to a burner phone anyway. So yeah, they never caught the guy. It was easily the most traumatic thing to ever happen to me, and I hope it stays that way. But despite that, I know it could have been so much worse. I don't know why he never hurt me or assaulted me, but I'm thankful he didn't. I know so many kidnapping victims are treated much worse than I was. Jesus, that is insane. That is, like, I don't even know That's so scary. And the fact that they couldn't find him as well, that just makes it even scarier. Like, my god. It low-key reminds me of the film, I think it's called Incident in a Ghostland, the one with Crystal Reed in it. In that film, two girls are held captive and made to pose like dolls as well, but they're like attacked and stuff as well, but it, like, the doll part reminds me of that film, which I think is like so creepy, like that the intent wasn't to harm them, it was some kind of weird, you know what I mean, like usually people kidnap because they enjoy hurting or torturing or controlling others, or you know what I mean, or taking advantage. So when it's something like this where like they don't even harm them, they just do weird shit, it's like, what on earth? Like, it almost makes it creepier in a way, because it's like, what is going through their head, you know? I don't know, it's insane to me. Yeah. Okay. The next one is by technical_wafer_7996. It's titled, I was almost kidnapped or possibly killed in Jacksonville, Florida. This happened in 2022 when I had moved to Jacksonville, Florida from my home state of Pennsylvania for school. I was there for only about a week and was going to parks around the area to feel the subtropical swampy nature I had been obsessed with since I was younger. I was a 20 male at the time and had not made any friends yet, so I was going to a new park every day all on my own. This was my first time in my life I was on my own, so I was dressing how I wanted. A crop top hoodie and some cute shorts. I considered myself a femboy. I've also always been told I looked younger than I really am, which may not seem important, but I think it plays a part into why this story creeps me out to this day. One day I had gone to a new park in hopes to see an alligator, though I can't remember which park it was specifically. I had just stepped out of my car and started towards the entrance of the park, which was a nice forested area with a welcoming wooden fence. There was a couple walking just ahead of me when suddenly a quiet hey came from my right. I ignored it, but then another hey came a few seconds later, this time louder. I looked to my right and a man in his 40s wearing a grey t-shirt and cargo shorts started rapidly approaching me. He got up close to me, really close, and told me not to go in that way since there was recently a lot of gang violence and drug busts in this park. At first, I brushed it off and thought he was just trying to be nice to me, but once I said thanks and started back towards the park, he shifted his body between me and the park. He told me he knew the park well, and that there was a quiet, secret path he knew and he wanted to take me down it. Oh, hell no. Not a chance. My heart sank as my eyes darted around the perimeter of the park. There was no other clearly visible paths from the parking lot. And as he told me this, another person walked by and into the park. This man did not try and stop the other person from entering. They didn't even look at them. Their eyes were glued to me. I started to stutter and said thanks, but if this park is dangerous, dangerous. I think I should just go. I started backing away, but he continued to press me, keeping pace with me and telling me I should go with him. Eventually, I just turned around and quickly walked back to my car, with him glued to my side. As I opened my door, I reiterated that if the park was this dangerous, I should just leave. But as I went to close it, he grabbed the upper part of my door and shifted his body between the door and the car so that I could not close it. He gave up on trying to get me to go with him, instead asking me for my phone number instead, because he, quote, wanted to make sure I stayed safe. I was holding back tears at this point and trying my best to keep myself from screaming, but calmly asked him to move. He didn't budge. I caved, but instead of giving him my current number, I gave him an old cell number which was no longer being used. He entered into his phone and started texting, which gave me just enough time to close my door and lock my car. He knocked on my window and I think he asked if I got his message, which I then just turned on my phone and nodded my head before putting it into reverse and pulling away. Just before I left the park entirely, I looked one more time to see him walking away from the entrance and towards the far corner of the wooded area. I still have no idea who this was, or what he wanted, but I still stay up late some nights, wondering what would have happened if I went with him. I don't know if he saw me as a young boy who was alone and vulnerable, or if he was genuinely trying to keep me safe. Thankfully, I never met this guy again, and was able to visit other parks around Florida without any weird encounters like this. He was not trying to help you. Oh my goodness, I am so glad that the OB just did their good and told him no and just went home, because that is so scary. He definitely saw you as like an easy target, and that is so scary. I'm glad that there were no other encounters like that. That is so frightening. And like him blocking the door when he's trying to leave like that just gave me the chills. Like, it's so good that he didn't try and force his way into the car. Oh my goodness. The next story is by aggravating_egg1614, and it's titled A Bone-Chilling Meeting. I, 29 female, had a very strange encounter with an older man back in college. Like many college students, I was struggling for money. I lived in an area most would consider wealthy. It was a very popular tourist destination for rich families. As a result of that, I decided it would be a good idea to go onto a sugar baby website and try and earn a passive income. I'd heard horror stories from prior sugar babies and would get cold feet when talking about meeting up with the men online. At one point I decided to suck it up, as I needed money to pay rent, and made plans to meet up with one of the men. It was nothing extravagant, just a trip a few hours out of town to a popular hot spring. I was still nervous and extremely cautious as the trip approached. I made sure all of my friends had my location and all of the information about this man in case something would happen. The night before the trip, he had reached out to confirm the plan and wanted to make sure I felt as comfortable as possible. He asked if I needed him to pick me up and if I wanted my own room at the hotel, just in case I wasn't wanting to stay in a room with him. I told him I'd drive myself so I'd be able to leave freely at any time, and man standing outside talking to who I assume was a worker. They seemed friendly, like old pals. I got out of my car and went to meet the man face to face for the first time. He was nothing like I'd expected. He looked very dirty and tired. He asked if I wanted to take my things to the room, and as he opened the door I saw 2 beds, one of which already had his belongings scattered about. I asked about the separate room, to which he informed me the motel was sold out that night, so we'd have to share. I should have gotten in my car and left, but I was tired after the long drive and it was getting dark. Sharing a room with a stranger seemed more logical than driving hours home on roads I wasn't familiar with for miles and miles without cell service in the dark. After I put my belongings in the room, the man suggested we go to dinner. He said it was just down the road and he would drive. I agreed and got into his truck. I immediately noticed how disgusting it was. There was mud everywhere and all the plastic was caked with a thick layer of what I assume was dog slobber and hair. He got on the main road for the town and drove towards the restaurant. My understanding was that it was just down the road. I was incorrect. We drove for about 30 minutes before arriving at the next town over, where the restaurant was actually located. Sitting down to eat, I was filled with dread. I didn't want to be there any longer, but it would definitely be too late to drive home once I got back to my car. I ate quickly and tried to keep the conversation polite and friendly, as this man seemed to be someone I wouldn't want to anger. When we got back to the motel, I was searching for anywhere else to stay in the area, but everything was something I couldn't afford. He then offered to take me to the hot springs, and I agreed again, as being in a public area felt the safest. After arriving at the hot spring, he enlightened me as to why he picked that specific location. A girl he used to see worked there, and he wanted to make her jealous. After a little while, it seemed that he realized she no longer worked there and wanted to go back to the motel. Back in the room, he began talking about his life, and I started to think that maybe he wasn't as creepy as I had thought. Maybe he's just a lonely old man who wanted some company. I became more relaxed as the conversations went on, until he started talking about his ex-wives. I'm a little fuzzy on the exact details of the conversation, as I became tense and panicked with every sentence he added. What I do remember is that his first wife was murdered and he came home to find her body, and the second one had gone missing and the police believe she was killed and hidden somewhere. I calmly excused myself to the bathroom and started texting any male friend I had, asking them to come to me. It was almost 2 a.m. at this point and no one was willing to make the drive. I did have one friend who called me and told me to leave the call running as long as I needed until I could leave. I came out of the bathroom and let the man know I was going to go to sleep. He said it was a good idea since it was so late and headed into the bathroom. He came out after just a few seconds holding an old straight razor. He asked if I would be willing to help him shave his face before bed. I made a comment about how nice the razor feels on his neck. I declined and told him I was really tired and would be going to bed. I put my phone on the charger with the call still running, set my alarm for sunrise, and tried my best to pretend to be asleep. For the next few hours I could hear him walking around the room and rummaging through his belongings. I'm certain at one point he was standing at the foot of my bed watching me sleep. just for a place that was supposed to be sold out. When I got home, I went to delete my profile off of the site and saw I had a message from the man. He said he wanted to let me know how nice it was to spend time with me, and he wanted to come visit me in the near future. That's insane. I'm sorry, but is it only... Surely it's not just me that thinks he killed both of his ex-wives, right? I mean, what a coincidence. A creepy man who can change from being nice to creepy to nice to angry, and both of his ex-wives were like murdered or went missing. The screams psycho to me. That's so scary. That's really, really scary, actually. Jeez. Okay. The next one is by low-kaleidoscope 3963. I just want to say a trigger warning from this one. I just saw a comment, so I just scrolled through and just quickly read through it. This one mentions animal abuse that leads to the death of a pet. So in the comments below, there's going to be timestamps of it, this one, so you can skip ahead. Actually, no, there won't be. There'll be timestamps for this one when it starts. But even though I'm recording this one before the last story, I'm going to put this one at the end, because there's one more story after this. But when I edit it, I'm going to edit the video and put this story as the last one. So if you don't want to hear that, instead of having to go to a timestamp down below, you can just exit out the video and leave the video here. So again, trigger warning: pet abuse that leads to the loss of life of said pet. Exit the video now. This is going to be the last story if you don't want to hear that. This one is by low-kaleidoscope 3963 and it's titled Clinically Crazy Ex-Boyfriend. I met Austin in the fall of 2024 via a message he had sent me over Facebook. I was lonely, really lonely. I had just moved to a new city with very few friends because I transferred from community college to university. So I gave him a chance. I messaged him back and we began chatting. We had a mutual friend, so I thought nothing of it. Maybe she told him about me, maybe he had seen me in passing. Time began to pass and we got much closer. Soon I met him in person for a date. After this date, things began to move forward very fast. We hung out all of the time and stayed at each other's places almost constantly. He was so sweet at first, and I was so excited to be around someone I believed was so genuinely kind. Fast forward a couple of months and I move into his apartment. It was a bad idea, I know, but my current living situation was growing increasingly more toxic, as I was living with 6 other girls. This was when things began to go downhill. He introduced me to his daughter Lily. She was so sweet and I adored her. He didn't get to see her much, as he would tell me his baby mama was insane and keeping her away from him to control him. As I got to know him more, he began to grow more violent towards me. It started with small things like yelling at me over misplacing a phone charger or not putting something where he thought it belonged. As time began to pass, the instances of his anger increased and became more dramatic. He would scream at me almost every single day. It was always my fault. If he lost his keys, if I was home from work later than expected because he needed childcare, if I went to visit family or friends, ages of 15 to 22. He was a 22-year-old man. Jesus Christ. Some more time passed and we moved to a much larger apartment in a different suburb of our city. Things were well for a while and I still remained oblivious to this horrible internet activity. To his horrible internet activity. After a very late night at work, he wakes me up and shows me a little tiny kitten. I found her at work and brought her home for you, he whispered to me. I named her Stripe and she was my soul guard. Me and this little kitten did absolutely everything together. About a month passes and I come home from work pretty late in the evening as I was a server at a bar. He was infuriated at me as he needed childcare so he could go to work. On top of that, he lost his keys and it was all my fault. He screamed in my face, called me names and began to escalate the situation, while I just sat with tears rolling down my face. At some point in his anger, he grabs Stripe and throws her against the bathroom floor because she bit him. She weighed less than 3 pounds and it wouldn't have hurt. She began to have a seizure and died in my arms on the way to the emergency vet as I gave her CPR. He had just killed my kitten in cold blood. For more context, he also had a dog named Cookie that he beat to the point of seizures. I'm glad to be able to say that I kept this dog and did not allow him to have the dog back again. I felt so trapped. I had no friends to reach out to, no family I felt safe staying with. I was isolated with a very dangerous man. I feared walking in the door. I feared leaving the house. I feared him. I was so depressed, I was contemplating suicide because I couldn't afford the rent alone as he was spending my money on top of his money. I had nowhere to go and nobody to help me. More time passes, August 2025, and I uncover his internet activity because one of the girls he was texting messaged me. That was the final straw for me, so I broke up with him. We still lived in the same space, however, he was in the bedroom for his daughter and I was in my own room. Flash forward to November of 2025 and he verbally assaulted me, saying absolutely nasty things. This escalated to him trying to choke me, throwing me all around the house, being physical to the point that I feared for my life. I tried to leave and he wouldn't let me. He tried to take my animals and let them out somewhere. He tried to hold a gun to me. It was scary. I thought I was going to die. I couldn't call the cops. They would take us both in the state that I am in, and they would take both of us. They would have booked us both and he had gouged himself with his car keys to make it look like I injured him. I had finals the next day and was scared to fail all of my classes as I could not afford to repeat them. At some point I do decide to take the risk to call the cops, but he breaks my phone by snapping it in half. I decided to run for my life. He forcibly took my house key, but I had my car keys, so I ran. I drove until I got to my father's house and fell asleep on his couch. From this point, he would not leave me alone. Over 100 calls and text messages per day, going from kind to abusive almost every 2 messages. I move in with my very distant mom and take my animals somewhere safe. I plead with him to leave my apartment because he wasn't on the lease, but he repeatedly refused as he wanted to fix our family. I begin to settle in at my mom's house and see people that I know reconnecting with old friends. As time passes, so do the holidays. I get over 50 calls on Thanksgiving, 100 on Christmas and New Year's. He was still threatening me, still harassing me, and I remained at my mother's. I finally convinced him to leave my apartment, threatening a CPO, hoping he would leave me alone and I wouldn't have to go through with it because I was scared of it being denied. January 10th, I get to move back into my apartment. It was trashed. I spent 2 weeks working to put the pieces back together and resume some form of life. I had within the past couple months started seeing someone long distance casually. He was lovely and offered to help me clean up all of the pieces of my life, which was not something he had to do. My ex still harassed me from his number, as well as fake numbers, posing as a stalker threatening my life. He posed as a different person in some form of the text saying he was going to get me. In February, I couldn't take it anymore. I filed the CPO and was granted an export A based on my testimony. I was still getting texts from the fake numbers threatening me, saying they knew where I was and what I was doing. After the court hearing, it all stopped. It was finally silent. I was finally safe. He still tries to find ways to mess with me, like giving my number to people, saying I'm easy, or making posts that relate to me and friends telling me they've seen something weird. He tried to get family to reach out to me and they wouldn't. Now I'm happy. I'm seeing my childhood best friend and we're in love. He's so kind and exactly what I need to feel safe. I feel safe, but I still look behind my back all of the time to see if someone's following me. I still get texts from numbers asking if I'm easy, then telling me they got my number from Austin. I still need to seek therapy. I still need to file a report of him violating his CPO. But overall, I'm happy. Let's not meet again, Austin. I hope you get what you deserve. That's insane. That's truly insane. That is so sad. That is actually heartbreaking and crazy and just wow. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of abuses, like, they'll seem really nice for the first while, and then when they feel like a lot of abuses will be really nice until they feel like they've got you trapped in some way, like relying on them, such as, being moved in together, or someone will like convince you to leave your job because they will look after you financially and stuff like that, and then they drop the act and show their true colours, and it's awful. It's a horrible tactic that they use, and yeah. And it's easy to say, like, oh, I would have left way before that, or at the first sign, or like, me personally, I would have left when they started abusing the animals, like, but it's so easy to say that, but when you're in those types of situations, it's hard, and it's dangerous, and you kind of just do what you feel will keep you alive, or keep you safe at the time, so I do understand